Guys and girls, welcome back to another spaceexplr episode. Today with us is going to be a great guest. Kind of had a little bit conversation before we started recording. Already showed me a little bit of a few pieces there and there. Again, when it comes to starting in astrophotography, so this is going to be a great show. He's going to show you more of the equipment that he's working with, talk about his personal journey. Again, basic DLSR astrophotography, deep space photography, and much more. So again, today's guest is Alex McCulloch. So he's 17-year-old astronomer, astrophotographer from the cloudy skies of Seattle. And of course, he has an Instagram channel that I want you guys and girls to go and follow him and connect with this man, ask him questions about astrophotography. He has a bunch of great posts. You have to check them out. It's pretty cool. And that's where we connected as well. So Alex, I appreciate you coming on today. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I mean, it's an honor to be here. I'm really happy to finally have a little bit of community outreach.
Here you go. Why everybody has to say that? It's an honor. It's my honor. You know, I'm very happy to see, as I told you before, you know, young people just like yourself. I do consider yourself younger, you know, because I'm 31, you're 17. So, yeah. You know, you're a young guy comparing to me. But I love the fact that you got involved with astrophotography. Again, as far as I've seen, like 240 posts currently, you have something like that. So it's pretty much, it's insane. I mean, and the amount of work that you put into it, and, you know, so I can't wait just to pick your brain a little bit and provide value for the people who are watching or listening.
Yeah, it's been a pretty interesting journey. I mean, I started like a year and a half ago, right about this time, actually, or no, 2 years ago, right about this time. And it's really been a year for the whole pandemic. Dang. Okay, but past that, I started astrophotography when I was like 15. I kind of got into it just looking at stars. I'm like, hey, those are kind of cool. And I'm like, you know what? Why don't I try to take a picture of them? And so I did, and it looked like crap. But it sparked an interest in me that's lasted me 2 years so far, and probably last me a lifetime, and has cost me many thousands of dollars. But it's been worth it. And I'm excited to share everything I know with all of you guys.
Here you go. Here you go. That is awesome. So again, like, what would you consider, like, first of all, the way you started, like, you said you looked at the star, like, was there an influence, a book or a movie? Like, how do you get into astrophotography, you know, these days? Or there's like a YouTube video, like you go in a black hole of the YouTube videos, like, section, and you like start looking at these, you know, astrophotography videos. Like, how does it start?
To be honest, for me, I tried to impress a girl, and it didn't work, but now it does. So, no, I was talking to this girl who was really interested in space, and I was like, hey, I got an idea. I got a camera. Let's try something funky. And it didn't really work, but then I was like, oh shit, this is cool. And I got really into it, and I'm like, okay, I gotta invest some money into this and see where it takes me. And here I am, 2 years later, with a telescope that weighs more than I do, and camera equipment that's better than the camera I'm recording this with, which is a Canon EOS 80D. I've got this bad boy now, the ZWO 294 MC Pro with a couple filters for it. And this thing, these are awesome cameras. They cool them to like -45 degrees Celsius, and it is fascinating what they can do to reduce the noise on these cameras. It's just mind-blowing, the difference between the DSLR and a regular camera, like, or not a regular camera, an astro camera. I can't even begin to explain it. But
so if you don't mind me asking, just first of all, like, as I said, you know, when it comes to learning about astrophotography in the first place, again, like in your case, you know, there was a girl. Hopefully, you're still with the same girl.
No.
Here you go. Here you go. But, you know, we have to thank her again for you just, you know, starting this hobby, you know, so far, and continuing with it, you know. So again, if she's watching or listening, thank you again. I hope from both of us. And you know, it's really fascinating. But, you know, it's quite a journey for a lot of people, especially because the learning curve is quite steep. So how do you go about, you know, what have you chose personally when it comes to educating yourself about astrophotography? Was this YouTube?
Uh, a guy who helped me a lot is Bowen, Bo J Stellar
Oh yeah.
on Instagram. He's been my mentor essentially. Like I asked him a couple questions when I was just getting started, and he took me under his wing, and we're best buds now. He's pretty much taught me everything I know. Everything else I've taught myself. I'm not a huge fan of like YouTube videos and tutorials for processing. I
Mhm.
have a personal belief that a photographer should develop their own style, and that's what I've done. And I mean, it's up to everyone else to determine what they want to do. And YouTube videos are a great source of knowledge. And if you're stuck somewhere, I highly recommend going to a YouTube video on that subject. But frankly, watching clean cut processing tutorials where every step is step by step by step by step in just a brick layout of what to do when processing, I find that to be a little bit suppressive of creative power. I think that people should work through Photoshop or whatever app they're using and figure out their own method. Like I've figured out some methods of my own for star reduction, things like that. And it's just so rewarding to have that type of thing. Like when you sit down and you work at your computer for 5 hours and you figure it out, and then it's like just a mind-blowing spark and just a bunch of dopamine, and you're like, yes, I did it. That's the rush I'm in it for. I'm in it for seeing myself progress, and I don't know, helping others progress the same way that Bowen helped me. And yeah, that's how I went about learning. I've got advice from lots of friends, and I've watched a couple YouTube videos here and there when I get stuck. Things for inspiration, other things like that.
Got
And
it.
I don't know. I've just had a fantastic journey.
Got it, got it. And we had a podcast episode with Bowen as well. If you guys and girls want to go to that episode, that's episode 70. And on Instagram, he's Bujay_stellar. If you want to follow this man and kind of get some glimpse of his personal work as well. So is that what you would recommend for the beginners? You know, just to connect with people on Instagram?
Yeah, exactly. Connect with people, outreach to people, like ask any of us questions, any of us astrophotographers. If you reach out to us and ask us a question, we will be more than happy to answer, unless you're a mean person and you want to take money for it. But uh like if anyone wants to ask me any questions, I am happy to answer. Find me on Instagram, send me a message, make friends. Like we have group chats with 40 people in them, and we're all just astronomers. We just chat, we just have daily chats, and sometimes we talk about astronomy, sometimes we talk about daily life, and it's
Yeah.
nice. You know, the community for astrophotography is such a beautiful thing, especially on Instagram. It's so vibrant there, and we've got so many young people, so many bright minds. Like I'm not sure if have you done a podcast with Helena or like Olga?
Did with Helena, yeah.
Yeah, like people like that, they're like the women in these science communities. It's just fascinating.
Yeah.
All of it is great. It's a lovely community. Reach out to us, ask us questions, ask us what type of gear you should use. Any camera, frankly, any camera will do. It doesn't really matter what type of gear you use. You can do the same thing with this that you can with a Canon Rebel T2i. It just takes time and repetition. Um,
Mm.
this is just a little bit faster.
Got it, got it. So guys, make sure to go and bombard him on Instagram with the DMs. That's Alex MCC Photo. If you want to do that, ask him again questions, anything we're not going to be covering here in this podcast episode. So talking about the equipment, as you kind of show this a little bit, like you know what you have, and I know you have the big boy underneath the table there that you're going to pick it up and show us that as well.
This is a C9.25 Schmidt Cassegrain telescope. And this is the light bucket that I've used for like the last 4 or 5 of my projects. It is an f10 telescope. I have it reduced to f6.3 with a Meade f6.3 reducer, which makes it about 1300, 1400 millimeters, and f6.3. It's faster than most lenses. It lets in a lot of light, and it has amazing resolution. You can resolve Pluto with this thing, with the naked eye, through a lens. And this telescope, Schmidt Cassegrains are expensive. They're good. but they're easy to use, and once you learn them, they're easy to use. I should not say they're easy to use. They have a lot of issues like mirror flop and focus offset and distortion on the edge of field. But once you work around those issues, they are fantastic telescopes, and having one, it will last you a lifetime. This telescope is twice as old as I am. So
that is incredible. So how much does it go for? How much, if you pay for it?
A telescope like this retails for about $3,000, but on the used market, you can probably find a C9.25 for in the $300 to $500 range with a little bit of mirror issues, some like mold on the mirror. You can clean that. You can clean it if you're technically handy or whatever. You can clean that. It's not that difficult. I recommend buying used gear for astrophotography always. Never buy new unless it's like a filter, maybe a filter, or an adapter or something silly like that. But other than that, everything should be bought used for astrophotography. It will save you so much money. Like I got this lens. This lens retails for $2,000. I got it for 200. It's got a broken autofocuser, but I don't need autofocus for what I do. I use film cameras and I use old cameras because I like the retro aspect of it. And I'm an astrophotographer, and you can't really autofocus in astrophotography. It doesn't work like that. So go buy a lens with a broken focuser, or go buy I don't know, go buy a camera with a bad viewfinder. You don't need the viewfinder. It's all a manner of like figuring out what is necessary for what you want to do and finding things with only that, and you will make massive amounts of savings on those things.
Got it.
But anyways,
so two questions. First of all, as you talk about the equipment, really great valuable information. By the way, I don't know if if anybody that I have previously on the show kind of talked about that you can buy kind of not fully working equipment because some parts are just not going to be used for astrophotography. So this is really great. I mean, saving up on equipment, like in your case on the lens, like 10x, paying 10 times less. It's really great, So
yeah.
So when we talk about telescopes, like is the bigger telescope is better? Like which way? Because people are going to see it now. People are going to be like, oh my God, this is so huge. Do I have to buy the huge telescope?
No. So the bigger telescope gets you images of farther away things. However, it is garbage at getting images of bigger things. So what this telescope is good for is taking, like, if you can pull up some of my images right now, could you do that? Could you pull up my image of the bat, the super close up one? It's the second one. It's of the veil, the eastern veil.
Let me see. Well, I'm not actually logged in on Instagram, but I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna pull it up for you guys. Yeah.
Oh, he has a print of it.
He has the print of it. Here you go. Of course, that's why he's naming this particular object. He has the print.
Okay.
Is it for sale? Is it for sale? First of all, can we buy it?
If you reach out to me on Instagram, I'll print you one and send you it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
For like, I don't know, $30. I'll send you this size of a print. I don't really want to charge that much. I just want to get my artwork out there. But this is taken with that telescope, and it is.
So can you talk about what we're again looking at? What is this again?
So this is the Eastern Veil Nebula. This is, I'm trying to think of a way to if I have another photo around to show to compare. Yes, I do. It's right here.
So this interview is going to involve a lot of walking around the room. You're going to see that.
Yeah,
I do that. It's all for the good. It's all for the
good. Okay, so this is taken with an 80mm refractor. This is the Pleiades, or Subaru, as some people call it. Mm-hmm. And this is taken with an 80mm refractor, an ED80 f7.5 from Orion, and no reducer, no flattener, and a crappy old T2i. And this is one of my first images actually taken with a telescope. And these two images are the same quality. This one's taken with the big telescope. This one's taken with a small telescope. For reference, an 80 millimeter telescope is about as wide as this camera, or a coffee mug. That's about 70 millimeters. But anyways, you don't need a huge telescope to take amazing photos. You can take amazing photos with this lens, a 70 millimeter lens or a 200 millimeter lens. You can buy old vintage lenses and they work great as long as you get the proper filters, because they have a little bit of chromatic aberration, but you can fix that. And anyways,
Got
you
it.
don't
So,
need a big telescope.
and fun
You
fact,
need
can you talk about, sorry again if I interrupted you. Fun fact, can you
no,
say
it's okay.
what you mentioned it's Subaru. A lot of people are probably going to be commenting like, why is this called Subaru?
It's the logo of the Subaru company. It was named in Japan. It's named by like the philosophers or whatever, or astronomers and philosophers, great thinkers of the past. And the car company was like, hey, that's a cool logo. Let's slap it on our cars. And they did. And now
Here you go.
now this is on every Subaru.
Here you go. Fun fact.
Yeah.
That
There's a
is
lot of things like that too.
Yeah, that is awesome. So again, which way would you recommend for people to go about? Because again, the second question that I wanted to ask you, you mentioned you can buy used equipment. So maybe for the U.S. market, because again, you're in Seattle. So can you talk about particular websites or places, forums that people can go and buy this used equipment?
Yes, I'm blanking on the name right now. It's God, I gotta Google this real quick.
So it's going to be one of the like Astro forums, or it's going to be just a
Yeah,
website dedicated.
Forums, Astromart, like places like Astromart and Adorama Camera and other places like that. You can buy used cameras for significant discounts. And like Astromart, and there's another website, I can't remember the name. Somebody will comment it, I'm sure. But there's play and like Facebook Marketplace, even eBay, all these websites you can buy used equipment on. I highly recommend going to them and taking a look for what you want before you go and buy it from a retailer like High Point Scientific. Love High Point Scientific, by the way. Really great about what they do, and I've never had any
How
issues
do
with High
you,
Point Scientific.
so can I ask you, how do you go about like picking them? You mentioning, the brands, like how people should go about picking the perfect brands, and maybe you can give an advice on that as well.
Okay, so all of the brands are all just ripoffs of the same thing. Like the Radian Raptor 61 is
It's
just
all
a
in the
rebranded
name. It's all in the
Sharpstar
name.
61. They're the same telescope. One costs $200 more. Don't buy the Radian Raptor. Buy the Sharpstar EDPH 61 too, please. I mean, unless you really like black, but go ahead, be my guest. But the Sharpstar is a far cheaper telescope, and they're exactly the same. All of these telescopes, all of the ED80s, they have slight differences in focuser. It's all the same glass. I mean, you're not going to get that much of an improvement from a Primulus Lab telescope or a fancy OptCorp telescope. Canon, High Point Scientific, and Orion. I mean, all the original brands. Sharpstar makes fantastic telescopes. Buy a telescope from Sharpstar if you want a good telescope. They make these 150 millimeter parabolic f2.8 newts that are insane, and they come pre-corrected, ready for use. You just slap it on, spend 3.5 hours collimating it because it's f2.8, and then you're ready to image. And it will take amazing photos. And like the Sharpstar 61 EDPH and the High Point Scientific ASCAR version of the same telescope, both great options. If you want to know more about those little telescopes, talk to my friend Nick. His tag is like High on Space on Instagram. He knows a lot more about those little telescopes than me. I'm more into the big stuff. I image on usually a 9.25 to an 8-inch telescope, and or a 27.5-inch telescope at the observatory on the island. And
so let me ask you a question again. For looking at the current equipment that you have, like what will be the best case scenario or future plans when it comes to upgrading the equipment? Like, what do you want to have?
for me,
Yeah.
I want to build an observatory. I want to build a shed with a roll-off roof, and I want to be able to press a button and have my telescope start imaging. That's what I want. I don't want to have to go set it up. I don't want to have to go polar align it. That's a pain in the butt. I don't want to do it. I don't want to have to cable manage all my cables. I don't want to have to untangle them all, run a power cord out. I want to just press a button, have the shed roll off, have my telescope focus itself and start imaging. Full automation is what I'm after. And for some reason, I don't get the same joy out of doing like those remote telescope companies. It's just like, I haven't built that. That's not mine. It's just
Yeah.
like grabbing data off the internet,
And
which
is it
is a
worth
good thing
it?
to do. Is it worth it? No, 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 no. Unless you really want to image some obscure target and you want to pay like $150 to get a good image of it, be my guest. Don't recommend it. You can buy the equipment, take 100 photos like that for the same price ratio.
So let's say, and like for somebody who's, heard the word, observatory and is like questioning, like scratching their heads, like, is that even possible? Okay, can you do that at home? Like, and how much
Yes.
that would
Yeah.
cost?
So it would probably run you as much as a high-end telescope mount. I have a high-end telescope mount. I've got an EQ6R Pro from Skywatcher. Fantastic mount. If you want to buy a mount that will last you 10, 20 years, buy that mount. Don't buy any mount from Meade ever. They make terrible mounts. Buy a Skywatcher HEQ5 or EQ5 Plus or EQ3M Pro, any mount from Skywatcher or Orion, anything from Cinta, which is the corporation that houses those two. They make fantastic mounts. They have good warranties. They will fix anything that's wrong with your mount most of the time. Sometimes they're bums about it, but they're
That,
big companies. What can you do? But like building observatory runs down to three things. You need the housing, you need the automation, and you need pier. So essentially, it would cost you a slab of concrete, a piece of property, a plastic shed off like I don't know, Craigslist or something. Just buy a used plastic shed that like people use
or
to
you
keep
can,
like
or you
their
can build
lawn
one.
equipment in. Or you can build one, yeah, which will cost the same probably. It'll be more satisfying to build it though. Highly recommend building things. I love building. And then you need some motors to make a roll-off roof, or you can go out and just pull the roof off. You'll have to know a little bit of handiwork, make some rails and stuff, but it's all worth it because then you can leave your telescope out in your backyard. It needs to lock too if you live in a sketchy area, because otherwise it will get stolen. Telescopes are very valuable, and people will try to steal them and sell them. I know stories of people who got like $15,000 mounts stolen from the back of their cars, and that's like, oh, that would hurt so bad. Don't let that happen to your gear. But yeah, building a backyard observatory is something that's I plan to do in the near future, because it would make imaging here so much easier. I can have a weather camera. If it's clear, my telescope will pop out an image, and then when it gets cloudy again and starts raining, it'll close and put itself away. So
That is all. That's really awesome to hear because it's from where I'm hearing that you're planning on playing this long-term game, which is really great. That means
yeah,
you're going to be here for quite a while, So as a lot of people, probably who are listening here or watching this, so they're like I'm thinking how to take photos with this, like
you
with my
can.
phone. And now you're
Yeah.
talking about building observatory, which is phenomenal. I think you're going to inspire a lot of people by saying that again by being 17 years old. So that's really fascinating. So what type of work are you planning to do in the future, like with observatory? Do somebody who's getting started in astrophotography, like, do they need to go this crazy? Like, what's the observatory for mainly?
The observatory is just my preference. I am lazy. I don't like to get up and do things. I want to be able to be out with my friends, and I want to be able to press a button on my phone and have my telescope open and start imaging. I don't want to have to go home every time it's clear outside. I want to sit and enjoy it. And when you image, you're not stargazing because you have to tinker with your mount. It takes about an
Mhm.
hour to set up. I mean, oftentimes I'll set up if it's warm, I'll set up, and it's warm and clear, I'll set up before sundown, which is nice. But when I live on Bainbridge, sometimes it clears up at midnight. I don't want to go out and set up anymore. When it's midnight, I'm too tired. I don't want to do that. I'd have to drag all my equipment upstairs, wake up my whole family. put it out in the front lawn, drink a coffee. I'm not sleeping the rest of that night. I don't want to do that. I want to press a button, go to bed, wake up, images, boom. That's my ultimate goal. And I mean, it's not that far away. I mean, all I have to do is set up a little building in my backyard that will open up whenever I want it to. And I mean, even if that means just going out and rolling off the top of a shed, I know a couple people on the island who have that. One of my friends has not my friends, he's an acquaintance, has he's got like an 11-inch Rasa telescope. Those things are fascinating. F2, these giant F2 telescopes, they let in so much light. And he has a button he presses and it does a 15-minute imaging session, and then he goes to bed. He's old. He goes to bed like old people do. And and so he's 80 years old and he has 1,000 pounds of equipment, and all he has to do is press a button and it does all the work for him. So,
but with that press a button, we're not talking about, as I said, you're going to press a button and you're not going to get the last result that you showed us on a print, right? That's going to be just halfway.
That is sitting at the computer for 5 hours doing work. But
go.
press of a button, as far as carrying 150 pounds of telescope, like this telescope that I showed earlier alone weighs 42.5 pounds with all my cameras attached, and the mount weighs another 80 with the counterweights. And by the way, if you buy a big telescope, you're going to have to buy a big mount. There's no getting around it. Don't buy a big telescope and buy a small mount and expect to get good images. You will not. I had to buy an EQ6R, which is a $1,300 mount, to be able to image with my 8-inch telescope. And that thing weighs half as much as this. That mount can also support this. But
hey, look, that's good. Who needs to go to the gym? That's
yeah.
really awesome.
Right?
Beautiful. So can you talk about, as I a little bit kind of mentioned, about the post-processing and, the editing part of that, seeing kind of the final images, like what do you use? What do you recommend? How much does it take? Pros, cons, anything?
I use Deep Sky Stacker to stack all my images. It is a free open source software by this awesome guy who made it. I don't remember his name right now. You can look him up, recommend donating to him or something. He does fantastic work with that program. I use Photoshop from Adobe. The con for that is it's $10 a month. I think it's worth it. If you have a job and can support that amount of income, definitely go Photoshop. Otherwise, you can get PixInsight. Insight is a great image processing software. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I've used it a couple times, and I mean, I can't really get anywhere with it. I'm too I'm too straight-minded for that. I don't want to know what a arc sine curve does to the stars. That's too difficult for me. I like it simple. I like curves. I like histograms. I keep it straightforward. When you're in Photoshop, after you get the image from Deep Sky Stacker, remember to take darks, flats, biases. This is important. This is very important. The difference between a bad image and a good image is darks, flats, and biases. That is the most important thing I can say, because if you have a lens like this and you look through this lens, it's gonna have chromatic issues. It's gonna have distortion on the edge of the field, right? When you take a flat, it'll get rid of that darkness, that distortion a little bit. When you take a dark, that'll help your camera. If you don't have a cooled camera, you have to take darks. You should take darks if you have a cooled camera too. And biases will also reduce some of the noise. So when you take all those three and put them together, you will get an image that is at least twice as clean and polished and easy to process. If you don't take flats especially, you will be screwed when it comes to the processing department, because your image will have these dark edges or these white edges depending on the lens you have, and it will be really, really difficult to get them to go away, and you'll be left with them in your final image no matter what you do. Like if you look at this image, there's no edges of the field aren't darker than the rest of the image. Everything's clean. That's good. I took flats. Take flats. But anyways, Photoshop is great. Lightroom is great for batch processing of Milky Way photos. Lightroom comes with Photoshop. Great deal. I use Lightroom every time I take photos. It's my main regular photography processing image suite, and Photoshop is used for retouching and stuff. Photoshop is the workhorse of my astrophotography though. it essentially has made all of my images. Also, StarNet. StarNet is amazing. PixInsight has a great module for StarNet. I do have PixInsight, and I use it for just that. I use it for just StarNet because PixInsight allows my computer to use my graphics card to accelerate the StarNet process, which would normally take like an hour and a half to 3 hours. With my MacBook Pro, it takes 25 seconds. So my
and can you explain what is a StarNet for the people?
For StarNet.
Yeah.
Oh, StarNet removes all the stars from your image, so you're able to process just the nebulosity, and then you can put the stars back in later. So this image was processed without StarNet, so you can see the stars are really big and a little bit blown out. The camera makes it worse than there. The camera makes it worse than it is, but the stars are big and a little bit blown out, right? Especially the brighter ones. This image was processed with StarNet, and as you can see, the stars aren't big and blown out. They're there, they're present, and they're pretty, and they aren't white overexposed. Some of them actually have color. Not in this image because this is taken with a filter that blocks out RGB. So this is just, this blue is oxygen, the red is hydrogen. This is taken with a enhance from Optlong filter. $137 or so. It'll help you a lot if you have a hydrogen modded camera and you live in really polluted skies. But StarNet is essentially your best friend as an astronomer who processes like deep space or even wide field photos. It allows you to take your Milky Way photos from a 1 to a 10. And it allows you to take your deep space images from like a 5 to a 10. It's the difference between, unless you're processing with PixInsight and you're like an expert, StarNet is a must.
Beautiful.
And it's StarNet plus.
Here you go. Here you go. Awesome. So again, I know that you don't focus on planetary stuff, but can you talk about, again, when it comes to buying those filters, is there a difference between buying, filters for when you're going to be shooting planetary stuff versus the nebulas, and
Yes.
what type of filters they should buy?
Yes. So actually, this photo is a decent planetary filter. Or this this filter is a decent planetary filter. And so the way this works is it blocks out infrared light and it blocks out most bandwidths of regular light. So as you can see, there's a bit of a color temperature difference and possibly a little bit of a sharpness difference. I don't think this camera is IR sensitive, so it shouldn't matter. But if it were on this camera, you would see a big difference in how fuzzy the image is. So most filters will block out infrared light at base, and then also several other bandwidths of light. Like for instance, this filter blocks out infrared. So if I were to put it in front of my phone, like my phone's IR sensor for Face ID, and when your phone like tries to read your face, it shoots out IR light. If you put this over it, it wouldn't be able to get through, and it won't work with Face ID. Things like that. So when you're shooting a planet, most people try to do it with just a naked sensor, and they'll use a camera like, hang on, I gotta unscrew it real quick. Like this one. This is a ZWO 120mm little guide camera. So they'll use a camera like this with a tiny little sensor. As you can see there, that's a little super tiny sensor. And what that does is it effectively increases your focal length by a lot. So this has like an 8 times crop factor, whereas this has like a 2 times crop factor. So it'll make your image look a lot closer, and it'll be easier to focus and things like that. Small pixels, small sensor, and a big lens, and an IR cut filter. And is what you must have. There's also, if you want to get super into planetary, you're going to want an atmospheric distortion corrector, an ADC element. They cost a lot. They're like $200. I personally don't find it worth it because I don't image planets more than once a year. I'll take a picture of Jupiter through the 27-inch Ritchie or Newt at the observatory every once in a while. But I mean, I'm not a big planetary guy, so I don't have one. But if you want to get heavy into planetary, buy an ADC from ZWO and learn how to use it. It will make your images 100 times better.
Got it.
And for deep space, there's all ranges of filters you can buy. You can buy a L Enhance for color camera. You can buy an entire set of mono filters for a mono camera. And I mean, there's they're too expensive. They're too expensive for me to go mono. Filter costs about $200 for a low end filter, and that just is too much of a hit to
And how do
take for
you
only being able to image like.
how do you
Oh, go ahead.
tackle the light pollution? Where do you live, like on a Bortle scale? Like how bad is it for you?
I live right next to Seattle. I am in Bortle 6. It's not that bad. I know people who do better and worse. Essentially, the Bortle scale, unless you live in the middle of a city, as long as your Bortle scale is below 6, you should not limit your expectations for anything except Milky Way photography. Deep space photography, you will be able to get the same results as everybody else as long as you put in enough time and have a decent light pollution filter, at least. For Milky Way, though, you'll be limited pretty hard unless you have a really good filter. The way that light pollution drowns out the Milky Way is just, it's unavoidable. Oh, your video went off.
Yeah, I can see that. Hold on just for a second. That's fine. Let me see.
Okay.
Oh, it's back again.
The way that the Milky Way works is, the Milky Way is like a level 2 on the lightness scale. I'm gonna make a lightness scale in my head. So Bortle 1, you can see the Milky Way. It's brighter than the sky is. Bortle 2, you can still see the Milky Way. It's just as bright as the sky is. Anything up from Bortle like 4, you can't really see the Milky Way with your naked eye anymore. I can glimpse it sometimes here if I squint and use averted vision. But it's not really visible or imageable from my house. I have to travel about an hour out to Forks or Squim if I want to image.
And how do you mentioned how do you tackle again the light pollution? Because some of the people that I know that have talked about they're living in Bortle 7, Bortle 9. You know, for most of the people, they're going to be stuck in a city, and they maybe they don't have the possible way to travel outside the city. So how they can tackle the light pollution that way?
All right, if you have money, narrowband. Go mono, get narrowband filters and a filter wheel. It will pretty much ignore all the light pollution. If you don't have money, get a L enhance or some other broadband light pollution filter. It will help, not much. It will help as people are switching to LEDs, which emit all across the spectrum. Light pollution is going to be bigger and bigger of a problem. It's going to become unavoidable. We're going to have to go to remote locations to image at some point. But for now, monochrome cameras are the way to go for that. If you can't get that, just get a lot of integration time, like 6 to 8 hours, and you'll manage to pull a decent image out of that, no matter what light pollution level you're in, unless you're in like a Bortle 11 or something in like Las Vegas.
Post-processing?
Post-processing, you can't really avoid light pollution much in post-processing. There's a couple of things you can do. You can like remove the gradients in your image, but here, let me point the camera over there. You see that photo right there? So that yellow is the light pollution of Seattle. That's Comet Neowise, and there's a meteor up there, and that's a water tower at our local park. That's a great photo. I recommend checking it out on my page. There's actually a man on top of the water tower. But that yellow is light pollution from Seattle, and it's actually blown out white in the bottom left corner of the image. You can't really avoid that type of stuff when you're doing wide field. Light pollution is just going to have to be a part of your image in post-processing if it's there.
Gotcha. And what about the other problems that might cause some unexpected pieces in your imaging? I'm talking about that stuff that's behind me. What about the
satellites?
Yeah, what about the satellites?
If you're
is that a big problem?
No, not at all. People are so worried about StarNet ruining their images. Grow up. Learn to use Deep Sky Stacker. It's easy. You use Kappa Sigma clipping, and it removes everything that is out of the average. Everything. Comets, meteors, anything that blows by your image is gone. Even airplanes, gone. It throws out that section of data. It doesn't throw out the data. It throws out a section of data, and it just averages it out, and you're left with a clean image. So I've taken pictures where entire StarNet trains have gone through them, and I stack them, and they're not there. It's not that big of a deal. Well, Starnet will pose a problem for future astronomers like in 20, 30, 40 years when all the satellites are dead and they're just like
Mhm.
clumping all across the sky in a blanket. That will not help because it will make the light pollution level higher. But I mean, there's ways to get around it. Use higher focal lengths. We'll adapt. It'll be fine. Global warming will hurt us worse than space junk.
Got it. Got it.
Ever will.
Okay, so I love it that you kind of cleared out for the people because again, everybody has their own personal opinion. Some people they just yell at me like with this intense, like, no, this is the big problem. It's going to cause a lot of problem. With the satellites, with astrophotography, and it causes for these huge, huge telescopes that are globally around the world, or they being constructed. So we're going to have those problems, with those science tools, and but what you're saying is actually that you can get rid of that. That as you're saying, the global warming is going to be a bigger problem than this.
I
So
mean, for scientific observations, these satellites are going to pose a little bit of a problem because
yeah.
when you're observing like an exoplanet, you're trying to observe a full orbit of an exoplanet around a distant star, you're watching that specific baseline. I mean, if a bunch of space junk's going in front of it, it's going to mess with the data. But for astrophotography, it's not a big deal, frankly. The only place it might pose an issue is for wide field and Milky Way astrophotographers. I'm really sorry for them. They are going to take a hit with the amount of satellites that are being pushed into the atmosphere right now.
Mhm.
But I mean, for deep space astrophotographers like me, it's not going to pose that much of a threat. And if anything, we'll come up with software to automatically detect and remove these from images eventually. We can already remove all the stars from our image. Why can't we remove the space junk, right?
That's a good point. So, what would you consider again in your personal journey? You said that you've been doing astrophotography for a year now.
2 years.
2 years. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like, what would you say to your personal self when you got started with all the information and all the tools that you have currently? What would you say to the young Alex? Like, don't do that. This is stupid.
I mean, honestly, I think that everyone is going to experience stupid mistakes. And I think that everyone should experience stupid mistakes because it makes you better at the
I
hobby and it
had I
learns you
had
to be more
like I had like 10
knowledgeable.
of those today, so it continues.
uh, like one of my mistakes when I was early imaging was that I forgot to check whether the mount was latched or not, which means that the gears weren't engaged. So I was like, why isn't this goddamn thing tracking? Why isn't it working? I spent 5 hours with my buddy out in the freezing cold trying to troubleshoot this mount that was not tracking. The gears weren't engaged. That I had to flip a latch. My recommendation is don't get sloppy. You might think that you're good at this. You're not. You never will be. It's always going to be this. It's like flying an aircraft. It's like if you make one mistake, the whole night's ruined. Um, I mean, if you find an aircraft and when you make one mistake, a lot of
Yeah.
worse things are going to happen. But anyways, we're going to jump past that and talk about this. If you like for this thing, uh, sometimes there's a little latch down here that has different notches for different weights of cameras. So if you put it at the wrong notch, your camera won't track right. And things like that, just little things like that you think are going to stay the same, they're not. Things are going to happen. It's astrophotography. It's not a straightforward, straight cut hobby. Your camera is going to not work for a night. Your lens is going to fog up. Your focus is going to shift. Your mount's going to stop working. Your guide camera is going to break. Stupid things like that happen every single time you image. This software is not mainstream. It's not perfected. This hardware is not mainstream. It's not perfected. There's going to be issues. They're going to be present. My advice to everyone, accept them. They're part of this hobby. People who get frustrated over these issues to the point where I can't do it anymore, I quit. That is
Mm.
the reason this hobby isn't more popular, is because people like that are like, they give up too easily. Don't give up. Just don't give up. Just keep trying. Eventually you'll get it. Ask some friends for advice. Ask people like me for advice. I've experienced a lot of issues and I know how to help. So I don't know. If I were to tell my younger self anything, I would say just keep doing what you're doing. Reach out to friends, and don't give up.
That's
You
and
know,
that's
clearly I
a
didn't. I'm still here. So
Here you go, here you go. You're still going. So, and I think it's part of that because you surrounded yourself with a great group of people. Kind of mentioned, behind the scenes where we talked about, Helena, that previously
mhm.
been here on the show as well, and just like a lot of people that I'm sure you're getting these, DMs or just having, private conversations with these people. And when you're part of that group, when you surround yourself with the great people, you kind of have that sense of community. And those people, again, they will push you on astrophotography side, or sometimes they will support you through a personal journey, in life.
Yeah.
That's going to be really great. That's how you're going to survive, and that's how you continue to grow. And your work is going to become better. Because I think, I don't know if you would agree, but the toughest thing is probably when you're starting out, when you don't know how the things work, and when you're figuring things out and you're kind of clueless, right?
I think people overstate the difficulty of the learning curve of astrophotography. I think people are like, oh, the learning curve is like this. And then it comes up and then it's like this. It's not. It's like it's a little hill at the start, and then you go down and you're like, oh, I don't know anything. And then you go up. Once you reach that barrier and you recognize, oh, I don't know anything, you're going to go uphill fast. If you go back to my first images and take a look at how rapidly I progressed once I figured out like that you could use manual mode and you could change your aperture on your camera. The jump is from 5 stars in my image, not knowing what it is, saying Starry Night in the caption, to like having a picture of the Milky Way a month later at the sigma section of the Milky Way. Uh, and I mean, once you get a taste of that, you can never go back. It's it's amazing. Seeing the Milky Way pop up on your LCD of your camera is a surge like no other for me. It's wild.
That is awesome. So, what will be a personal journey? Like, what would you say? I know it's a little bit too early, probably, to ask you personally where you are just in life in a cycle. I think you're just, again, as I said, you're starting to ask those questions, and you just, right over here. So the journey is just for you just starting. You just started to climb. So, like, but what would you say personally? What will be your personal life goal? Like, what are you trying to accomplish as a human being? And maybe you're already thinking about leaving some footprints behind you with all the work that you do.
I mean, honestly, I don't really want to pursue a career in this too much. I mean, I would love to take a job at an observatory or something, but frankly, I'm more interested in mechanical engineering and electrical engineering than I am in being an astronomer and astrophysicist. I mean, that's going to be a big hobby of mine, but my personal look on things is that if you turn something into a career, it'll ruin the fun in it. And so if I go to
You think
work
so?
and I do if I go to work and I do astronomy for from 9 to 5 every day, and I come home and I'm like, oh yay, more astronomy. No. No. I don't think that's a good idea. That's like learning things is fun, right? But when you go to school, is it always fun then? No.
Yeah, it depends. It depends where you're going. Depends where you're
Like
going. If you're going to the college, and you're in the dormitory, your friend is Mark Zuckerberg, or somebody who came out famous and after, maybe that's fun. To go and network with people. I think that's what the schools, or in
yeah.
particular college, is supposed to be used for, especially those with the big names. But I think you just kind of you mentioned a good fact that having that as a career, in life, can ruin that as a hobby, which you
It's
have a
it's
lot of
it's
fun in.
completely a personal choice though. I
Yeah.
do recommend people go into careers in science. They are awesome careers and they pay very well. It's just not for me. Yeah,
So
that,
what
that's all
about
I
so
was
what
saying.
about the engineering? You're talking about engineering. Like, what do you want to do with that in the future?
So I really love computers and I really love building things. So I thought, why not build computers? And so I have. I've got my computer that I built next to me, and I've got another computer, if you want me to show that I
Please.
just built. Yeah. Uh,
So we're seeing a box, but what's in the box?
let me show you. Give me a sec.
And what's this special? I mean, what about building the computers? I mean, it's kind of being, well, already. can go and buy a computer, like what that would be different from the ones that you can actually go and buy?
So this is my computer cost me $2,000. I wish it cost me $200. And it runs better than probably a $10,000 computer that you could buy from Dell or something like
Mhm.
that. So I mean, it's cheaper, it's fun, it looks good, and it's fascinating that you can build these things. But anyways, this is a computer I recently built. This is a Ryzen 5 2600X underneath here. That's the processor. It doesn't have a graphics card yet. That's coming today, or it got lost in shipping. I don't know. I'll find out. Uh, and it's got like a water cooler and a nice case and and a bunch of RAM. It's got 16 gigabytes of RAM right here, and this is a workstation computer for my dad's house. This is for my dad, and so this will be used to render things like CAD renders and
Mhm.
other things like that, and it'll work better than this computer cost me $800 to build. I bought
Wow.
used parts, I bought broken parts, I repaired them, and this computer cost me $800 to build. It'll function far better than a $1,500 laptop that my dad has, like exponentially better. And I mean, building computers is fun. If you want to build a computer, hit me up. I will build a computer for you, or things like I like I like building computers. That's all I
That
have to
is
say.
that is awesome. That is I mean that's a crazy amount of money that people can save. I mean, we're talking about if you know you can buy a laptop or a computer for 1,500, and the one that you have again you build that for 100, but let's say you're going to be selling that even for three, four, $500. It's still
I
three
built this
times
for 800,
cheaper.
not 100.
Okay, okay,
This
sorry.
was an $800 computer, but it will function like 2 to 4 times as good, or
Yeah,
no, far more than that. It'll function like 10 times as
got
good
it.
as the laptop. Like
And
my
that's really
computer
great because a
that
lot
I
of people
built
are
for
working from home
processing,
now.
yeah, my computer that I built for processing, versus my MacBook Pro Retina 2015. The Retina has 16 gigs of RAM. It has an i7. This has essentially an i5 and 32 gigs of RAM, and it processes things at a speed that my MacBook cannot even comprehend. Like, if I want to run a StarNet or a denoise on something, it'll take a matter of seconds instead of a matter of hours. It's a time saver, and
Hmm.
it's just they cost the same. The MacBook and this computer cost the same, and this one, I mean, it's not as portable, but because it weighs 40 pounds and it's attached to 2 monitors and a keyboard and a mouse and a camera,
Yeah.
but it it works. It's a workhorse, and that's what I like about computers is you can build them to do whatever you want to.
Exactly. And I think that's what the computer is supposed to be used for, you know, to do
Yeah.
some solid work. And especially, as I said, now where a lot of people are going to be working and will continue to work from home. I think a lot of companies will stay, you know, the way they are now when the employees are going to be working from home. Some of the people, just like your dad, they're going to be using, AutoCAD or, some softwares, and tools that will require a lot of, hardware and, just to make sure that these computers are running solid. I'm pretty sure, a lot of people who are doing a lot of like crazy work, editing or, some, coding, they're not going to be using, there are people using, laptops and, MacBooks and things like that. But, like having something like that, like a desktop computer, it's definitely far more
Yeah,
better.
something just runs reliably
Yeah.
and doesn't crap out on you or crash. Like the computer I started with was like this crappy HP computer. It had like 2 gigabytes of RAM and an i3, and it took an hour to boot up. It barely ran Nina to run my astrophotography. It took about 8 hours to stack an image. This takes 30 seconds to stack an image. It's a world of difference. It takes the fun out of it to have to spend 8 hours putting the images together into something you can have fun with. It's not uh a good computer is a must for this hobby.
Oh, for sure.
That's something I have to say.
Because we're talking about 8 hours, and we're talking about
Yeah.
8 hours that you're going to be frustrated. You're going to be like, oh my God, why is this taking so long? It is going to be costing you more, pain, like headaches, like mentally, instead of, so I do
Exactly.
understand, because I work with a lot of slow laptops, including this one, for a long time. And, it's a headache. Like, you just, it gets to your nerves. So having
Yeah,
a
exactly.
fast computer, it's a must these days, because we do depend on the technology.
We
So, like,
do.
so on that note, like, what do you think is going to happen with the computers, with the science? Maybe you getting some glimpse of what is happening, around the corner, like any crazy, innovative stuff that will be
Yeah.
coming out, either for astrophotography or computer science hunting.
So there's not really much for astrophotography. I think we've pretty much hit the limit, or hit the point of diminishing return.
Hmm.
Uh, for our cameras are certainly going to get better. Our optics is as good as it's going to get. Uh, like this 20-year-old optic here, it does just as good as brand new stuff. I mean, optics haven't changed much over the years. They've gotten slightly better, they've gotten faster, they've gotten sharper, but that's all that's happened. Cameras have come very far. 80 years ago, we were using stone tablets to take pictures. Like literally, we used stone tablets with a reflective coat on them, or with a reactive coat on them that would capture an image. Now we're using this little brick that cools itself to well below zero and makes these amazing little images with a dual stage Peltier cooler on it that takes all the heat away from the sensor and blows it out the back. And but that we're not coming much further with that. This is pretty much as good as it gets when we're coming into these CMOS chips. But for computers, quantum computing is taking great leaps right now. And when quantum computing becomes more popular in the industry, it's not really it's something for you or I, because they have to cool it to almost absolute zero, like absolute zero, like cold, cold. They use like 20 stage Peltier coolers, liquid nitrogen, other things like that to cool these computers. But when these things are up and running, when they're cooled down to their temperature and up and running, they can do feats that no consumer computer could even imagine for artificial intelligence and other things
So,
like that.
what's up with tasks? So, can you talk about that? I'm pretty sure, IBM has a lot of those build up, and probably a lot of the, banking systems or financial industries are using, quantum computers for now. But what's up with tasks are you talking about that could be done with a quantum computer?
Like you could host a human brain on one, like things like that like we don't think possible. Like you could literally host a consciousness on one of these quantum computers, potentially, not yet, but potentially. That's just how powerful they are, and it's
Hmm.
fascinating to think about that as a possibility. Like I could upload my consciousness to the web. That'd be terrifying.
That is, yeah. So, I mean, would you do it? Would you apply? Would you upload yourself onto a
No,
unit on a computer? Would you do that?
not likely, not likely. Depends on the opportunities. I mean, if it's something that everyone's doing, maybe. Doubt it though. I doubt
Yeah.
it. That'd be too creepy. I'd get taken over and killed by my evil clone or something. I don't know. That's not something I want to do. I don't know. That sounds a little spooky for me. I mean,
But
I'm all for this intelligence and
yeah.
science stuff, but like, oh, it's scary. It's scary. I mean, I imagine, how did it feel when as like these new computers were coming out? I imagine it's kind of the same way. It's like, dang, they know everything about me. Like, shoot.
Exactly.
uh
So, what do you think? Should we be concerned? Because I know you'll pretty know. It depends again who you're going to be listening to when it comes to AI. So like Elon Musk is talking about, oh my God, this is going to be the end of the world type of scenario. Somebody else who's in a technology industry working on software development, they're going to be like, this is the best thing ever. So
I
what
think Elon Musk actually thinks it's great too.
is it?
But like, yeah. He has his artificial driving cars and stuff. I mean, I don't
Sure.
remember. I don't know if he said anything recently, but I feel like I remember him saying some things about just like AI being the future and stuff. But anyways, I don't think it's that bad for the world. I think artificial intelligence, as long as we don't abuse it, will be a great tool to have. It'll allow these computers to do a lot of the really hard work for us and allow us to focus where our efforts are more needed and further innovating this technology and other things like that. Well, the computer runs these servers and stuff. Like, you could have 100 humans managing a data center, or you could have one artificial intelligence managing it and telling you what's wrong, where it's wrong, things like that. You could have it piloting spaceships to other planets. You could have it like in Interstellar and other movies like that. You could have
So
it
what do you
running these.
what do you think? Should we like give full charge on like for the technology that's going to be making those decisions? I mean, if we're talking about flying a plane, driving a car for us, which is already happening, or doing some other major task. Let's say it's going to be fully automated AI technologies because it's going to be running the finance industry and combine the AI with cryptocurrency, which is again, it's made of nothing. If it's gone, it's gone. Like so, we can think about 100,000 different worst case scenarios. I mean, should we be concerned about those things, or this is kind of the
I,
price that we have to pay eventually
I don't
at
think
some point?
so. I think that AI, as long as we program it right and it doesn't gain sentience and I don't know, destroy the world, it's immune to corruption. It's like where there's people, there's corruption, right? Like the government is corrupt. At least I'm not sure, where are you from? Where are you from?
From Ireland.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the U.S. government here is pretty corrupt, and like
Look, it's a
police
global problem.
departments, finance industry, the stock market, it's all corrupt
Yeah.
because there's people. But where you put AI, there is no room for corruption. They think linearly, they think logically. They use math and they use deductive, like
But
they don't use like human
the question
emotion.
is who's going to be controlling the input when it comes to AI? Who's going to be
See,
controlling?
there's where the human input comes in, and that's where it all goes downhill. Um, it's a matter of what we manage to make that depends on whether or not it's a good idea, in my opinion. I think that cryptocurrency is going to be a big thing in the future. That's why I'm mining it. And I think that AI is going to be big. I personally don't want AI to take over driving. I love driving. I'm a car guy. I like to go out and drive my car and have fun. Uh, but I mean, it's probably going to, and there's not much we can do about it. It's safer. It's like self-driving cars. Once they're all on the road, it's gonna be safe, unless someone hacks them, which would suck.
Yeah.
Like
And,
you see in a
and
lot of movies.
so again, what do you think of the worst? Hopefully not, but let's say the worst case scenario happens here on the
Worst
planet,
case
and
scenario, we end up in the Matrix.
here you go, here you go, or maybe before
Yeah,
ending,
yeah.
maybe before.
Worst case scenario, we all wake up one day, red pill or blue pill, and I don't know.
I'm sure. I'm pretty sure I know what a lot of people will take. So, but would you say again, traveling to Mars is kind of having this kind of plan B, and do you think this is going to happen fast or not? I mean, and from astrophotographer, point of view, do you feel like this could be, home 2.0, and would you go there at some point yourself?
I personally would not go to Mars. Um,
Interesting.
I by the time we're going there, I'm gonna be probably 50, 60. I'm just gonna want to live the rest of my life out, frankly. I mean, I'd send my kids there for sure.
Hey, look,
Uh,
it's cool. It's cool if you're born on Earth, you can die on Mars. It's not a lot of people do
Fair
that.
enough, fair enough. I mean, I don't know. I personally wouldn't go. I really like this planet. I love all the scenery. If our planet's dying, I'm gonna go travel the world. I'm gonna go see everything. I personally don't think that our planet's gonna be dying to the point where we all need to migrate to Mars. By
Hmm.
the time I'm dead, uh, it depends on whether or not our politicians step up and do something about global warming.
Hmm.
But
So,
I personally wouldn't go. I do think that this is a great step for humanity, and I do think we will end up on Mars.
yeah.
But I don't think that I would go. It's just too
So,
daunting.
yeah,
I
I
mean,
do understand. Like everybody has their own personal views and takes. And first of all, should we even go on Mars? Because there's already been created groups of people who are shouting against that. They're like, we should not go to these places and planets just because they're there. It's just like for us to, like anything that you see in nature, like some sort of a animal that's being extinct, you're just supposed to observe it. You're not supposed to kill it or eat it or capture it and
Yeah,
close it in a cage. Like you're just supposed to look at it and admire it and just embrace it. So I think a lot of people look at those planets, that way as well. As like we're not supposed to be there. We're born on Earth, and that's where we're supposed to be. But there's another group of
I
people who
agree.
are scientists, and they're willing to explore. Because I think we're naturally explorers, and that's what we like to do. We like to, as we say here on the planet, colonize stuff. We go from Spain to America.
Yeah,
We go to different planets, different places on Earth, and we go into war with each other because of this land, this ball that we're all living into. So it's crazy. We're crazy people. So part
yeah.
of this craziness, as I mentioned, is global warming. I mean, so how big of a problem? Maybe you can paint us a picture on kind of so it will help us a little bit understand more, like how big of a problem is global warming,
For astrophotography or just in general?
just in general.
I think it's a pretty damn big problem. I mean, once the polar ice caps melt, like they reach the point of no return, it's gonna be just like a constant feedback loop of ice melts, carbon is released, air gets warmer, more ice melts, carbon is released, air gets warmer, and so on and so forth. The atmosphere is gonna become thick and smoggy. Sea level is gonna rise. Crops are gonna start to die off. It's not gonna be pretty. It's a mass extinction event, and frankly, I think we need it. uh some sort of mass extinction event. The human race, it's a beautiful thing, but we destroy everything we touch. We make these great inventions, but like you go out into nature on a hike, trash everywhere, right? And I mean, unless you're in like a really well preserved place, there's like litter, there's humans have marked things up, we've cut down trees, we clear land. It's,
Hmm.
I mean,
We're super monkeys.
yeah. We're super monkeys, and we have this need to progress, which comes at the hit of everything around us. And I mean, how many species have humans caused to go extinct? Like
Mm.
countless. I couldn't even fathom the amount of species we probably caused to go extinct. We've saved a couple too, but like we're
Yeah.
doing more harm than good here.
So
But
maybe,
anyways,
maybe Mars is actually a really good plan to have,
yeah,
before.
yeah, because if
Yeah.
we go there, we're not going to be destroying. We're going to be populating and
Because
vitalizing
yeah,
and
exactly. There's
terraforming.
nothing there, so we kind of have to create everything from scratch, and
Yeah.
maybe that's a good thing.
And I think that in a society like that, where everything has to sustain itself, we would recognize that we can't go burning these fossil fuels, and
Hmm.
we can't, because there are no fossil fuels on Mars that we know of. But uh we can't go and burn these wasteful make this all these carbon emissions. I mean, well, frankly, to colonize Mars, we would have to make an ozone layer, so we would have to like burn a lot of stuff to or I think a theory that Elon proposed was to just create a massive nuclear winter on Mars by like
Hmm.
nuking the absolute shit out of it, and then that
That's a
creates an
that's a good
atmosphere.
start.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go colonize a planet, blow it up. Why not? But what that would do is it would create an atmosphere. The radiation and stuff from the bombs would create this atmosphere around the planet, and once the radiation clears, then you're left with a planet with a functioning atmosphere, and from there we can make breathable oxygen.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's all a long process for sure, but I mean, there's a lot of different theories that people propose, like just go there, gradually terraform it. Sure, that'll work for 5 people, not for 5 million people.
Hmm. Again,
But
look, not a lot of people will go there, and I think a lot of people still looking at the situation that we're going to be in. If we're going to talk about, like let's say 97% or 99% of the planet is just going to be water. If we're talking about, the ice caps melting, and it's not going to be a lot of land. Maybe people will start to create something just like Dubai does, creating land from
yeah,
scratch. Maybe that's going to be the way people are going to go, or creating, some floating type of cities, and as
yeah,
you see on Netherlands, they build stuff on water. So you know, it's like people are, you know, they have the ingenuity, they have the capabilities to create, you know, to leave the situation, the bad situation, like to find a way to solve the problems. We're creative that way. But do you feel like the what's happening with the global warming? Do you feel like this is still possible to turn back, or do you think this is kind of inevitable?
So I don't think it's possible to turn it back. There's no way with the growth rate of population and with the reluctantness of world leaders
Mm,
to like do something about it. We would have to commit like war crimes to get to get global warming to go back. We'd probably have to kill off like a lot of the population to get global warming to go back. But that's not something that we can do, obviously, because that's horribly immoral and awful and bad. But I think that humans will be fine throughout this. The thing I'm worried about is the planet, because the planet is going to take a hit from this. It'll recover eventually. Humans are going to be fine throughout this. We're probably going to have to leave the planet. I don't want to
mm,
leave the planet, you know? I want to stay here. I like it here. It's pretty. It's nice. It's got trees and it's got animals and you wake up to the sound of birds and stuff and it's nice, you know? And
mm,
I don't want to destroy that. And global warming is going to destroy that. It's going to ruin what we have here as people are pushed into these population centers. Like, all these big cities are going to become massive hubs of like homelessness and well, they already are, but uh they're going to become like massive hubs for disease and population as people are pushed further inland from rising waters, things like that. It's all going to go downhill
mm.
as global warming gets more severe. And I think water levels could rise by like, what is it, 17 feet, 20 feet if the ice caps melt, which isn't terrible,
That's a
but
year.
it's bad. It is bad if that happens. Like, uh, it's not like world ending. It's not going to flood the entire nation. We're well above sea level most places. I am currently 150 feet above sea level. I won't be touched, right? But it's going to push people inland, and population density is going to be go shoot up. The amount of farmland is going to shoot down as the land gets destroyed or covered by water. And I mean, it's just not going to be pretty, you know. It's not
Mm.
going to be the type of world that I want my kids to live in. Things like that, you know. And I just wish something would be done about it. But
But
that's a topic of
but
immense
don't
debate.
yeah, but don't we already? And I think that's a good kind of debate or just a good topic to talk about because this is our future. You know, this is future
Yeah.
for the next generations. And if we're not going to be talking about that, you know, because now while we're talking about that, some people who are listening or watching this episode, they're already thinking about that as well, and they, you know, like having those small ripple effects is really great. You know, and sending that message to the people and saying, hey, maybe you should be paying attention to what's happening. But as I said, you know, like I think there's already solutions being kind of created. Again, as like Elon Musk is being one of the frontiers, going green, you know,
Yeah.
electric car, solar city, just, you know, using solar power for
It's
the
the
things.
future.
It is the future. I mean, you know, or you know something else. And of course, we're creating nuclear propulsion systems to travel to the exoplanets because they've been registered. You know yourself, it's like over 2 or 3 thousand, like on NASA's website. Those potential planets in our, you know, in our system, in our Milky Way, in our galaxy, that it could potentially be our future home. Well, again, we don't have the capabilities to travel that fast. And of course, we're working on those propulsion systems, and hopefully, that's going to be the next step as well.
Yeah, I mean, okay, you know that population like intelligence scale that some philosopher threw out there a while ago, where like we're like a level 0 and like a level 1 is like harnessing all the sun's energy. We
Mm.
need to reach that level in order to survive as a humanity. I feel like if we go full solar power in the next 20, 30 years, our economy will take such a good bonus from that, and our health and our the world will be so much better off if we harness all the solar power that we're getting. um it's just something that should be done. I don't see why it hasn't been done already. I feel like the government should spend half what they spend on military and put it into solar panels and give everyone solar panels, right? And
Yeah.
then you don't have to spend any money on power, right? I mean, it's like you don't have to spend any money on these fossil fuel industries and God, but it's the
Yeah.
lobbyists. It's the lobbyists from all these industries that are ruining everything. So, I mean,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
all politics. It's all blasted politics.
It is. Look, life is not that easy. Life is pretty complicated, and there's a lot of different moving pieces. And one of those big pieces, as I said, it's politics. And
Mhm.
for day-to-day people, it's really hard to go around those rules or to, and that's what I think Elon Musk is proposing to create Mars as kind of society-free planet of, having no politicians, no regulations. Which, again, I cannot picture that personal myself.
No, it's not
And
gonna happen.
exactly. But look, I don't want to go to the Earth 2.0 where you're gonna have dollars, you're gonna have Amazon, Coca-Cola, like what's that about? Like I want something new. If it's gonna be a new planet, I want everything new, start from scratch,
There's
fresh.
a
Like I cannot
song.
recognize it.
There's a song and that I really like that's about this. I can't remember what it's called. There's a lot of songs about this, but they're like uh talking about how space is going to be like industrialized and colonized, and it's all going to be run by corporations. And crap, I have to remember the name of the song now. One of them is the Outer Worlds song. Uh but oh, what's the I gotta hang on. Gotta Google this. This is important. I feel like everyone should listen to this song. Uh
It's the lyrics, right? It's not the melody.
yeah. It
Okay,
is
so
it's the fine print. It's called The Fine Print by 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 the Stupendium, and it's a great little song. I recommend everyone listens to it, and it talks about a really important political issue, which is like how is this space travel going to be funded, right? It's going to be all these big corporations paying massive amounts of money to have people work for them and be like
mm,
practically enslaved to them for getting to go to space. And it talks about in the song, it's like to earn the right to work, and you like this is a gift to be here, so work for us for free, and you're gonna be working until you die. Things like that. I like that song. It's a good song. It sounds good too. Not just the words, the melody's pretty good too. uh Go give it a listen
so what do
if
you,
you like
what
it.
do you believe? Because like I love talking with the people from the States because every time I talk with somebody just like yourself, they're very business minded people. Even though maybe you don't think about that way, but look, you're into astrophotography. You're like building and creating networks of people around you. You're building computers from scratch. You're doing a bunch of crazy interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So you should give yourself credit for that at least, which I'm sure you do sometimes. But do you believe that a lot of people, including yourself, should go, self-employed at some point in the future?
Yes, I believe that everyone should pursue a career that they enjoy. And if that means being self-employed, do it. Do it. Full send, do it. I am getting commissions to build computers, and I am so happy to do that. Like getting paid to do something that I love, which is building computers and to messing with computers. It's amazing. It's great. I love it. I love it so much. And uh, to be able to do something that I love and get paid, it's mind blowing. And the American dream is all about like coming to America and finding something you love, but what it's actually about is coming to America and doing a job that is respectable. And there's a play we watched in English recently called Death of a Salesman, and it talks about how that stereotype cookie cutter just like American dream life where this guy works and he gets a good job as a salesman and he works there his whole life, and then he is depressed and he kills himself. And that's kind of what I think will happen if everyone does a career that they just think they have to do. I think that everyone should do something that they love to do. And I mean, that might not be the way our economy works, and I mean, what can you do about that? But if you have the means and the willpower to go self-employed and do something that you love to do, I think that you should pursue that. I think it's worth every penny that you'll spend along the way.
Hmm. Well, I'm pretty sure, like, my advice again for the people is always to, because I think that's kind of inevitable. We're gonna go there at some point because it's a proven fact that what government does, I mean, and governments are in charge most of the time, into
Yeah.
a lot of businesses and decision making process, who's getting paid what, and a lot of the payments are being paid for a lot of businesses, or people right now who cannot work, and so I think people should go back to the point as it used to be before. You give me 5 chickens, I will give you a goat, and we exchange we exchange the services. We do kind of this barter system, and
Yeah.
it worked. It used to work, and it worked. But now we have the Federal Reserve banks and things like that. Of course, this is not the show to kind of talk about the political and monetary side of
Yeah.
the things, but it's just, I do encourage a lot of people, if you're younger, older, doesn't matter, like starting something on yourself, as Alex said, kind of building maybe a passion project on a side and putting more kind of wood on the fire until it burns so bright that you don't have to go to your job that you, as you
Exactly.
said, that you hate. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about people who love their job, because I'm sure there's those, but I'm talking about the people who hate, and that's probably 95% of those people.
Yeah. It's like minimum wage jobs. That's a big issue here in the States. How is it over there in Ireland? How is
It's
like the
same.
minimum wage? Is
It
it the
seems
same
like,
same issue?
I will tell you a fact. Like, this is a proven fact. I don't know the recent statistic, but I know that there's more than 50% of the country is being supported by the government's welfare. 50
Dang, that's a
50%.
lot.
That's a lot. We're talking about, it's 4.5 million people, and it's almost, I think it's close to 2 million people are being supported in some sort of way. I'm sure
Wow.
some of the people are working, but some of those people are getting supported. So let's say you're working and you're still getting supported because you have, let's say, 4 or 5 kids. So you're going to get some additional support from the government, and this
In
is
in the
crazy.
US, it's over 59 million Americans receive welfare
Yeah.
every month.
Yeah.
That is insane. That's a tenth of our
Look,
population.
and I cannot tell. Look, I'm pretty sure those people are not lazy,
No,
but
they're
some of those people, look, I do understand. Like, I had a lot of personal situations in my life before as well, and things are just not clicking for you at the perfect time, So sometimes it takes time to figure things out. So I think for a lot of people, they're just stuck in that phase. They don't know what to do. They don't even know probably that they can start a business.
yeah.
I'm sure they
I mean,
can, but they just don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah, you just gotta wing it and
Yeah.
just do something you love. And I mean, if it doesn't work out, then you tried. It's worth a
You,
shot, right?
hey, you go on the next thing.
Like you're doing this podcast, and I'm sure you love doing this, and I don't know if you make money from it or not, but it's something you love to do. You should do it. i've
Yeah.
got i've got some friends who run podcasts, and that's all they do, and I mean, it's great. It's something you love to do. You should 100% do it, and they do, and they love doing it, and it's great.
Well,
And I mean, I feel like everyone should have that type of joy, right?
exactly. Well, this
Yeah.
is one. This is definitely a passion project, because I do have, like, and my wife, we have businesses as well.
Yeah.
But and I this is the second podcast, by the way, which a lot of people know.
Oh, you
So
have two?
there's 2 podcasts, exactly. So, and both of those because of the different passions that I have personally in life. So and it's, for me, it's not of like people looking at monetizing stuff. This is just expanding the awareness personally,
Yeah.
talking with cool people just like yourself. And do encourage a lot of people to start their own personal podcast, because this is a great way to understand what people do in life. If you want to get some inspiration, knowledge, tips, tricks, whatever you want to get from that conversation, and at the end of the day, just go and inspire some people as well, which
Yeah,
I'm sure
for
a lot of
sure.
people will do get inspired by this episode, not just me talking, but you talking about your
Yeah, I sure
personal
hope
journey.
so.
Oh, of
That'd be
course,
awesome.
of course.
Every time someone asks me a question on Instagram or Reddit or whatever social media or messenger service they have, and I answer it, and they're like, thank you, this is great," and then I see them progress because of that one statement or one question that I answered. I'm like, I just changed their life, and it's great. It's a great feeling to do something like that, and you just get rewarded by it so much to see these people progress and grow with your help, and you're like, it's great. It's You don't need money for that. You just it's amazing. It's just it's like the wonder of life. You're like helping these people grow, and it's awesome. And I love doing that. That's one of my favorite things about this hobby, is helping out the community. And I mean, it's just great. It's something that's it I can't describe it.
Yeah, and I love it. I love the fact that you're really conscious about, multiple things. First of all, you're conscious about the economy, you're conscious about, the future, global warming. You're looking at the space at the same time. Conscious what's happening out there. You kind of where we are positioned in this universe. What's going to happen in the future? Maybe we're going to go to Mars. Like, do you know the amount of people that I came across that they never heard about us landing on Mars before, like with the Perseverance, or just to know that
Really?
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who still don't know that we've been on the moon before.
Yeah,
I'm
a
pretty
lot
sure
of
because
people,
a
a
lot
lot
of
of people
people,
live under a pretty big rock. There's a lot of people
yeah.
who deny it too. One of the fun things about being in this hobby is you get a lot of people who are harebrained and they think that the Earth is flat and we've never been to space, and they get commented and was like, "Wow, beautiful picture. Too bad it's fake." And I'm like, "Let loose, guys." I've got 200 friends who beg to differ.
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
No, that is awesome. That is awesome. So I just love the fact again that you have a lot of passions for a lot of different things, and I think you're. It looks like you're one of those people who I talk about on this podcast for for a little bit, saying that we need those people who, instead of having this Earth-like thinking, they have this universal-like thinking. Which you have, you still think about space, but you're conscious what's happening here on the planet. And I think we need more people just like yourself who are at that young age, and of course I have to mention that again, but who are really conscious about what's happening here on the planet, and they're looking to add value to the people. Again, it's even through talking DMs on Instagram, inspiring people, providing value just like this, taking your time to come on a podcast, so it's really great. So
Yeah,
it's
for sure. The
yeah.
stuff that young people can do, like not just my age, but like younger, like it's fascinating when you put a bunch of young minds in a community. The stuff we can come up with it's breathtaking. Like I've seen a 13-year-old take better photos in a year with the help from other 13-year-olds and 17-year-olds and 15-year-olds and such than someone who's been doing this for 30 years can do. Like because they're too straight minded. They don't talk with other people in their peer group. they just they
Hmm.
just do, and they listen to the rules, and we break the rules, we set new
Mm.
boundaries, and
Yeah.
it's fascinating. Like there's 13-year-olds out there. Like his name is Kush, Kush. His name is Kush Astrophotography on Instagram. He takes better photos than me, and he's 13. And he's been doing this for half as long, and I'm like, dang. And I gave him some pieces of advice at the start, and he's just blown past me. I mean, he has a lot more time to do this than me, but like he is blown past me, and it's fascinating to watch things like this.
Yeah.
And it's just so inspiring. Like I think he's 14 or 15 now, and he's doing great things.
Yeah,
You go,
exactly.
buddy. You're doing
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. Yes. So we,
Yeah.
we, we need definitely more people just like that, because I think those people are going to be the future. And
Yeah, they
again,
are.
if I'm seeing more of those people, and that's what the podcast is for, for people just like yourself to come in and say, look, you can actually, pass me by getting all these tips and information, and you can actually take that information and go way past me,
Yeah,
with
I
all of that,
want
and you
I
can do more.
there's a lot of industries and hobbies where people are like, "Oh, you can do this, but like if you're better than me, then I won't help you." No, I will help you with everything. I want you
Yeah.
to reach your full potential. And if that means going better than me, then so be it. I don't mind. I'm doing my own thing. This isn't well, this is a very prestigious hobby, and a lot of people have very zealous thinking about the hobby. Like if you post your images on Facebook groups, he will be like, "This image has been post processed. It is not an actual image anymore," and things like that are just so dumb. Let people make art. This is art.
Mm, yeah.
It's art. I have a camera and a lens, and I am making art with it. Let me do what I want. Thank you very much. And you can go ahead and take your straight out of camera images that look like they're as dark as the middle of the night. You can't see jack diddly in there. And I mean, okay, go ahead, have fun. You could get a lot more out of that image if you processed it, but since you're so against processing,
Yeah. There's always going to be that side of the people who are going to judge you, whatever. It doesn't matter how
yeah,
bad or good
yeah,
you
I
do.
know.
It is going to be just. But
There's
that's
always that
good.
side of every hobby, but like fortunately for astrophotography, that side is pretty small, and
Yeah.
there's almost no kids in this hobby who believe that, like no young people. I mean, there are a couple, but I'm not going to name them.
Or maybe we should.
Well, I don't know. I feel like that would get a lot of feedback from those people. I don't exactly want that.
That's fine. Look, it's really awesome. So again, I really appreciate you coming on today because
Yeah.
it's a pleasure to talk with you because again, you're a really smart guy, you know, and you have your hands full on different projects, and I'm sure the future is going to be real bright for you personally. And so if you just continue to hold your personal focus and determination and whatever other pieces you have going on, you know, surround yourself with the great people, and you're gonna go a long way. So you know, it's an honor to talk with you today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a great time.
Thank you,
And
Alex. So, guys and girls, so kind of wrapping up this podcast interview. As I said, Alex has an Instagram channel that you should go. It's Alex MCC Photo. Of course, it's going to be posted in a comment section in the show notes. So make sure to go and connect with him. Ask the questions because we missed a bunch when we talked about astrophotography. Kind of went off to global warming, traveling to Mars, you know, because just talking about a bunch of topics. But this man is fun, knows a lot of stuff. So make sure to go and get in contact with him, follow him, have these conversations. And of course, don't forget, if you pass this episode to your friend, that's always great. Not because I do need subscribers, it's because we need more people to get involved into astrophotography, just to understand that, look, this hobby is available. You can do this from your home. Equipment doesn't cost what you think. It's actually way cheaper, and you can do this because there's already, you know, people just like, you know, Alex mentioned, 30-year-olds are crushing it. So please do that. So again, Alex, appreciate you coming on today. And as always, guys, I'll see you next time. And don't forget to keep exploring.